while I'm sad. You've been out all night, know you've been bad. Don't tell me different, know it's a lie. Come to me, honey, see how I cry.
Welcome to the Recovery Show with Bernie Z. That's me. We've talked now about step 1, 2, and 3. Let's move on to step 4, where it says made a searching and fearless moral and financial inventory of ourselves. Oddly, that's something that, well, some would say that's something you have to do at step 4. That should be an ongoing thing. Because if we are not continually looking at the whole aspect of what our life is like, that inventory of our financial and our moral aspect, we're not likely to maintain recovery. Because when we're recovering from addiction, we start to feel ourselves get a little bit more encouraged, a little bit more strength in our resolve to stay clean. But we don't always necessarily keep that resolve to stay clean as a broader perspective. For instance, we may be staying clean from gambling at the casino, but are we picking up other forms of gambling, such as driving fast and taking risks in areas that we may or may not know that there are police around? Are we choosing to do things that are risky? Because addiction is all about risk. It's all about that action. It's all about winning and winning. It really, I'm a compulsive gambler. It's not even about the money. It's about making that wager, about buying that scratch-off ticket, and going through the actions. So we're talking about avoiding problems. And the minute we stop doing that inventory, not only morally but financially, of what we're doing, we let go of the idea that it's an ongoing process. An example of that would be when somebody takes out a loan for a car, and then a few years later they decide they want to get another one, but they haven't got the first one paid off. Now they have to take a look at how much do they still owe on that car. Is that going to affect the purchase of this other car? Is it going to affect their credit rating? You look at all the different things. Credit scores are like that too, where they look at everything that's going on an ongoing basis. That's what a moral and financial inventory of ourselves is. It's an ongoing thing. It's not something that we do once. And that's one of the things that really bothers me with number 4 is it says made. It should be continuously make a searching and fearless moral and financial inventory of ourselves, because things change in life. One of the things that we're worried about when we come out of our addiction is cross addiction, or the idea that we may pick up a different addiction simply because we're not looking for it. A smoker that quits smoking will pick up eating, and the eating is as bad for them if they're overeating than if they were to smoke the cigarettes. Yes, the cigarettes will cause cancer, but the overeating, if you're eating the wrong kind of stuff, junk food, that kind of thing, like I had a bowl of ice cream a little while ago, those kind of things, if you eat it in moderation, it's okay, but it's when you get to the point where you're eating it beyond reason. And that's where we have to look at that moral and financial inventory being an ongoing thing. Because no matter what we do, if we aren't careful, we'll find something else to overdo. I've heard of people that have stopped an addiction and gone to exercise so hard they end up in the hospital. I've also heard of people who, such as myself, I'll make myself an example here. I stopped gambling, but almost started drinking, because alcohol is accepted too. And I sat down one day with some beer, and I started drinking, and I started realizing after a certain point I was drinking a little bit more than I should, and I was also drinking alone. Now, That would have been horrific if I had started drinking and become an alcoholic as a substitute for my gambling. Because then what I'm saying is I'm not keeping an eye on what's going on in my life. And we have to look at things that could be harmful to us. And remember, moderation may be good, but in some things, moderation isn't possible. For me, gambling, I can't go in and buy one ticket. I learned that the day I began my recovery. I went to a meeting. I came out of that meeting, thought I wasn't that bad, went down and bought a dollar scratch-off ticket immediately after the meeting, and that's what made me realize I can't do it, because the minute I bought it, I started getting a rush, and I'm like, can't do it. Can't do it. $1 scratch-off ticket. Now, out there in, here in Michigan, they've now made it legal to do your gambling from online, which really bothers me, because now I don't even have to leave home. It'd be like an alcoholic buying the beer, bringing it home, and sitting at home, drinking the beer, watching TV, and drinking himself into oblivion. A gambler can now sit at home and gamble their way into oblivion. They don't have to go out and buy the tickets to bring them home anymore. They simply turn on the computer and start gambling. And the next thing you know, they're in debt. Now, the commercials that I've seen are ones that say, you can keep gambling, and at the very end it says that you should know your limits. The problem is, it sounds a little hollow to me when they encourage you to gamble, but then they turn around and say, but know your limits at the end in a very, very small piece. And that's kind of the way it is with our moral and financial inventories too. We can't say, well, we're doing good with this, so we're going to keep on this path, but we're not going to worry about this and this and this and this, all the other things that play into it. Because if we don't keep our eye out for the things around us, the environmental changes, the moral and the financial damages that can be done simply by not being aware that addiction is addiction is addiction, then step 4 means nothing. Because you can't say, I made that inventory without looking at it again. So remember, when you're talking about made a searching and fearless moral and financial inventory of ourselves, we need to do that continuously. That should be something we wake up in the morning and we say, okay, I'm not gambling today, and I'm glad I'm not gambling. I'm part of decades of recovery. But I also have to know, what are the other things that might come into play that I could get hooked on? So continual looking at ourselves, that's an ongoing process that once we start it, will continue. There'll be days that will be less important than some of the other things. But now that we've gotten through those step 1, 2, and 3, we're looking at steps that they come in sequence. They don't necessarily have to be in order anymore. But it is important to be aware that it's an ongoing process. That there'll be days when there's something that tempts us and we have to start saying, wait a minute. We have to stop and we have to say, what does that mean for us morally, financially, mentally, physically? What are the effects of this? And do an inventory of it before we start going into something. Like I said, when I went in and bought that scratch-off ticket, the minute I picked it up, I immediately went to that inventory and I said, wait a minute here. I just got done listening to people that have been in prison and that have all these horrible things happen in their lives. I myself was in adult psych because of my gambling. And I was actually pseudo-gambling on the unit while I'm dealing with depression and suicidal tendencies. That's something to really keep an eye out for. What is it that's going on around us? And be continually and vigilantly looking for recovery and evaluating the moral and the financial and the physical aspects of everything we do. So today, that's my message for my fellow recovering addicts. And I thank you. Please, and I encourage you, comment, Email me, text me, whatever you want to do. The information's on my website, but I really do encourage you to keep thinking about that. Thank you, and have a good day.
While I'm sad, you've been out all night, know you've been bad. Don't tell me different, know it's a lie. Come to me, honey, see how I cry.